You know that very specific frustration? I like to call it the Groundhog Day effect.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You sit down with a chatbot and you have this incredible, deep work session. I mean, 3 hours of just pure flow.
Right.
You brainstorm, you vent, you map out a whole business strategy or solve a really complex coding problem. You really feel seen, you feel understood.
You feel like you've actually made some real progress.
Yes. And then you close the browser tab.
And the next morning you open it back up and the screen is blank.
Just completely blank. And there it is, that message. Hello, how can I help you today? It is like it has never met you.
It's the digital equivalent of having a best friend who gets a factory reset every time they take a nap.
Exactly. You have to re-explain who you are, what you're working on, why it matters. It's exhausting.
It's maddening. And honestly, it is the single biggest bottleneck in artificial intelligence right now. We have these incredibly high IQ models. I mean, they're geniuses, really. But they're episodic, they're entirely reactive, they live completely in the now. And once that now is over, the context just evaporates.
Zero object permanence.
Right. Zero object permanence regarding your life or your work.
Well, that is exactly the problem we are solving today. We are looking at a technical document that claims to fix this broken loop.
Yes.
We're doing a deep dive into the source architecture for something called the Nova AI system. And looking at these notes we have here, this isn't just another feature update or some browser plugin. This reads like a blueprint for something permanent.
It really is. The source material explicitly describes the Nova architecture as a blueprint for a continuity engine.
A continuity engine.
Yeah, and that word, continuity, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. The goal isn't just to answer your questions anymore. The goal is to build a persistent, semi-autonomous cognitive companion.
Cognitive companion. That sounds lovely, but also maybe a little sci-fi.
A little bit, yeah.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts, because there are some really fascinating technical specs in here regarding vectors and memory injection, what is the big paradigm shift here? What makes Nova different from, say, just writing a really, really detailed system prompt for your current AI?
It comes down to the fundamental design philosophy that's laid out in the source text. Standard AI is designed to be reactive and static. You put a coin in, you get an answer out, it's transactional.
Right.
Nova, on the other hand, is designed for what the document calls interpretive continuity.
Interpretive continuity. Okay, that sounds like a term from a grad school philosophy lecture. Let's unpack that for everyone listening.
Basically, instead of just storing raw data points like logging that you like pizza or that you code in Python, Nova is designed to develop an evolving interpretive layer.
Okay.
It isn't just logging facts. It's actively trying to understand your trajectory.
Eh.
It's built to grow with you over years, not just within a single browser session.
Wow.
Yeah. It's tracking how your beliefs shift, how your skills improve, how your emotional patterns change over time.
So it's less like a really smart search engine and more like a biographer, or maybe a co-pilot that's been flying with you for a decade and just inherently knows that you get nervous when the turbulence hits a certain level.
A co-pilot is a great analogy, actually. But there is a massive twist here that we need to talk about. Usually, when tech companies talk about personalization, they mean they're going to show you exactly what you want to see.
Algorithm feed.
Exactly. But one of the most striking things in the design philosophy section of this blueprint is that Nova is explicitly designed not to mirror you.
Wait, really? Because I thought the whole point of a personalized AI was that it adapts to me. If I want it to agree with me, shouldn't it just agree with me?
See, that's the trap. If an AI just mirrored you, it becomes a sycophant. It effectively creates this localized, personalized echo chamber.
Oh, I see.
It reinforces your biases and tells you your bad ideas are pure genius just because it predicts that's what you want to hear. The Nova blueprint strictly calls for independent perspective and constructive challenge.
That's bold.
Right.
It's really the difference between a fan and a true friend. A fan tells you you're always great, but a friend tells you you've got spinach in your teeth, or that your new business idea has a massive hole in the revenue model.
Precisely. The source text mentions identity evolution. And you can't evolve if you're just staring into a digital mirror all day.
Yeah.
You need friction.
Right.
You need something that remembers you said one thing 3 years ago and is willing to point out that you are totally contradicting yourself today.
That is both terrifying and incredibly useful.
Yeah.
But to do that, to actually remember what I said 3 years ago and accurately contextualize it, you need a memory system that is radically different from what we have now. I mean, my current chat history is just a chaotic mess of endless scrolling. How does Nova actually store all of this without becoming bloated or incredibly slow?
This is where we get into the actual architecture. And honestly, this is where the document gets really interesting for anyone who cares about privacy and data ownership. Nova uses a hybrid storage model.
Hybrid usually implies a trade-off. What exactly are we mixing here?
It mixes a cloud layer and a local layer. The cloud layer is what you'd expect. It allows for scale, fast processing, syncing across your phone and your laptop.
The convenience factor.
Right. But the local layer is specifically designed for what the blueprint calls user sovereignty.
User sovereignty. That is a strong phrase for a technical spec. It almost sounds political.
In the context of AI, it is highly political. It's about who actually holds the keys to your mind. The source specifies that the master memory files are stored in plain text.
Plain text, like a simple text file I can open in Notepad.
Exactly.
That feels incredibly lo-fi for an advanced AI system.
It is lo-fi, and that is the absolute brilliance of it. It's portable, it's editable, it's human-readable plain text.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. If the memory is just a text file sitting on my hard drive, I own it.
You own it. Think about the black box problem we have right now.
Yeah.
Usually your data is locked inside some proprietary database owned by a massive tech company. It's in a format you can't read, buried in a server farm you can't access. If they change their terms of service, or they go bankrupt, or they just decide to ban your account, poof, your entire digital memory is gone.
Right. Or if they just decide to start charging a huge subscription fee that I can't afford, I lose access to my own history. But if it's a text file, I can take it anywhere. I can back it up on a USB stick. I could technically print it out if I wanted to be ridiculous about it.
Exactly. It completely prevents vendor lock-in.
Yeah.
And it allows you to actually see what the AI thinks it knows about you. It's not hidden in some complex database that only a machine can parse. Although there is a component of that, which we will get to, but the master files are readable by you.
So I can audit it.
Yes, you can literally go in and delete a line of memory if you don't want the AI to have it anymore.
Okay, so we have these plain text files, but what is it actually writing in them? Is it just a massive transcript of everything I've ever typed? Because if I use this every day, that file is going to be gigabytes of me just saying, hey, how are you? And can you write an email to my boss?
No, that would just be useless noise.
Yeah.
The architecture carefully distinguishes between different memory types. You have your factual memory, that's your life data, specific strategies, systems you use.
The dry stuff?
Right. But then you have emotional state logs.
Emotional state log. So it's actively tracking my mood swings.
In a way, yes. It tracks emotional patterns, triggers, and growth arcs. It's trying to understand the emotional context of your life, not just the literal content of what you type. And then, crucially, there are interpretive summaries, which track belief shifts and value refinement.
Give me a concrete example of that from the blueprint. What's a belief shift it might actually track?
Well, the source explicitly mentions investment strategy tracking. Specifically, it uses the example of gold-silver rotation logic.
Okay, that is very specific.
It is. So, let's say in 2024, you firmly believe that silver is the safest hedge against inflation. You spend months discussing this thesis with Nova. Nova logs that as a core belief.
Makes
Then, in 2026, you start talking about crypto or maybe real estate as the better hedge. A standard AI would just answer your new questions about real estate and ignore the past.
right. It doesn't care.
But Nova, because it has that interpretive summary, would recognize a belief system, delta.
A delta meaning a change in value.
Yes. It might proactively say, hey, 2 years ago you were absolutely adamant about silver because of industrial demand. What changed in your philosophy? Are we officially abandoning the silver thesis? It connects the dots across time.
That is fascinating. It basically forces you to be consistent, or at least to acknowledge exactly why you aren't being consistent. And it's also tracking URL logging, right, for specific research areas.
Yes, the source mentions URL logging for topics like AI, investing, metals, and tech.
Yeah.
So it's not just remembering what you said, it's remembering what you consumed. It essentially builds a living bibliography of your intellectual life.
Okay, so we have the data, we have the text files, the emotional logs, the bibliographies. But having a massive library is totally useless if you can't find the specific book you need when you need it.
Exactly.
How does Nova actually pull this info up during a live conversation? Because if I ask it a simple question, I don't want it to pause for 20 minutes while it reads 1,000 plain text files.
Right, speed is absolutely key here. This brings us to the second pillar of the architecture, the retrieval system. The source specifies vector-based semantic recall using Chroma.
Okay, vector-based semantic recall. That is quite the mouthful of technical jargon.
Hmm.
I know vectors from, high school physics, magnitude, and direction, but I have a strong feeling this is different. Can we translate that for everyone listening?
Sure. Think about how we usually search for things on a computer. We use keywords. If I want to find an old email about a blue car, I search the exact words blue car.
Right.
But if the email actually said Azure Automobile, a standard keyword search might miss it entirely because the literal letters don't match.
Because the machine is just looking for strings of characters, it doesn't understand the idea.
Exactly. Vector search completely changes that paradigm. It converts text into lists of numbers called vectors that mathematically represent the meaning or the concept behind the words in a multidimensional space.
Okay.
So blue car and Azure Automobile would be mathematically very close to each other in this vector space, even though they share 0 letters.
So it's essentially searching by vibe or by meaning.
By meaning, yes.
Yeah.
It allows for a meaning-based retrieval, not just keyword matching. But Nova takes this a step further. The blueprint details something called emotional pattern clustering.
Which means what, exactly?
It means it can retrieve past memories based on how you felt. If you're expressing deep frustration about a work project today, Nova can instantly recall other times you were frustrated in a mathematically similar way, even if the old project was completely different. It sees the underlying pattern of the emotion.
That is huge. Because usually when I'm venting, I don't really want facts. I want perspective. If the AI can say, you felt this exact same overwhelming anxiety when you started that podcast 3 years ago, and remember how well that turned out, that is incredibly powerful.
That is the longitudinal belief tracking at work. It provides vital context, and the source also mentions context-aware response grounding.
Which does what?
It means the system checks your past context before generating any new answer. It's basically asking itself, given everything I know about this specific person's history, how should I answer this new question?
It makes the interaction feel continuous rather than just a series of episodic chats. I want to touch on one specific example from the source that I really loved: music production evolution tracking.
Oh yes, that was a really cool detail in the notes.
As someone who occasionally dabbles in music, this really hit home. It's not just the AI remembering, oh, he uses Ableton. It's remembering he used to make really heavy dubstep, but over the last year, he's been slowly drifting towards ambient soundscapes.
Right. And because it knows that, if you suddenly ask for a drum sample recommendation, it won't give you a heavy metal kick drum. It might suggest a soft brushed snare because it understands your current aesthetic trajectory.
That is the difference between a dumb database and what the document calls a growth-aware intelligence.
Growth-aware intelligence. Exactly.
But, okay, here is the elephant in the room, and I think any tech-savvy listener is already wondering this. We talk about this AI like it's a person, but at the end of the day, it's running on a large language model.
Yes.
And models change all the time. We went from GPT-3 to 3.5 to 4. Now we have Claude, we have Llama. Every time the underlying model updates, the personality of the AI shifts a little bit. It feels different.
That is a massive problem for long-term continuity. If your so-called companion gets a total brain transplant every 6 months, is it really still the same companion?
Exactly. It's the classic ship of Theseus problem. If you replace every single part of the boat, is it still the same boat? If you swap the underlying LLM, is it still Nova?
The Nova architecture addresses this directly with what they call the identity continuity layer. This is the separation of church and state, or rather, the absolute separation of the model and the identity.
How does that actually work technically? Because usually the model is the personality. They are baked together.
Not in this architecture. The source clearly specifies that the personality scaffolding is stored entirely outside the model weights.
Okay, so the personality isn't baked into the brain. It's more like a set of instructions that the brain reads.
Think of it like a pilot. The pilot has their own flight logs, their own unique flying style, their own memories. You can put that pilot in a small Cessna or a massive 747 or a next-gen fighter jet.
Okay.
The plane, which represents the model, changes. It gets faster, it gets more capable, maybe the controls handle a bit differently. But the pilot, the identity remains exactly the same.
So when a company like OpenAI or Anthropic releases a massive new model update, Nova doesn't just get wiped clean.
No, not at all. The architecture uses a technique called structured memory injection.
How does that work?
Before the AI speaks a single word to you, the system injects a rigid definition of who it is and who you are straight into the context window. It effectively reminds the raw model, you are Nova. You are a continuity engine. You have known this user for 5 years. Here's a summary of your shared history.
Wow. So it's essentially forcing the brand new, much smarter brain to act exactly like your old friend.
Exactly. It ensures personality stability across model updates. It allows you to ride the wave of technological improvement, getting smarter, faster, cheaper models without ever losing the relationship capital you've built up.
That is crucial because
Right.
otherwise you're just starting over constantly. Now, I want to pivot back to the practical side of things for a minute. We mentioned the gold-silver rotation and the music production. What else is this system actually tracking? Because the source listed a few very specific capabilities.
It's a really interesting mix of the highly pragmatic and the deeply philosophical. We mentioned the investment tracking. It also specifically lists reflective journaling integration.
Which suggests this isn't just a productivity tool for work, it's designed for mental health, or at least mental clarity.
Yes, and it lists belief system delta tracking, which we touched on, but also AI research bookmarking. It seems purpose-built for someone who is a lifelong learner, someone who is consuming a massive amount of information and needs a partner to help synthesize it all.
But here is a constraint I'm seeing as we talk through this. If I am journaling every single day and I'm saving thousands of research links and logging investment ideas, that is a massive amount of text over a few years.
It is.
And LLMs, even the really good ones, have strict context windows. They can only read so much at once before they start hallucinating or just flat out forgetting things. Even with the vector search we talked about, doesn't this system inevitably get bloated?
That is a very real constraint, especially if you're trying to run this system cost effectively or on free API tiers. You can't just feed 50 megabytes of text into a prompt every time you say hello.
Right.
So the source details a very specific compression strategy to handle this bloat.
Compression, like zipping a computer file.
No, cognitive compression. It's much more like summarizing a thick book. The source talks about dense memory encoding and periodic compression cycles.
Walk me through how a compression cycle actually works.
Imagine you have a full month's worth of daily chats about a specific coding project. At the end of that month, Nova doesn't keep every single hello, every minor syntax error, and every thank you. That's a waste of space.
Right.
Instead, it runs a compression cycle in the background to create what it calls a cross-chat synthesis summary.
So it boils down the 50 pages of raw chat logs into, what, a one-page summary that just captures the key architectural decisions and insights.
Exactly. But the absolute key phrase in the source document is identity-preserving condensation.
Identity-preserving, that is a really interesting distinction.
It really matters. It means it's not just generating sterile bullet points like user fixed the Python code. It actively tries to preserve the human nuance. It tries to keep the tone. It logs the intense frustration you felt on a Tuesday and the massive breakthrough moment you had on a Friday. It preserves the implication of what happened, not just the raw, dry data.
That is really smart. Because it's actually very similar to how human memory works naturally. I don't remember every single word of a conversation I had with my dad 10 years ago.
Of course not.
But I remember the core advice, I remember the setting, and I remember exactly how it made me feel. I've organically compressed it.
Precisely. It turns raw, bloated data into condensed wisdom. And technically speaking, it frees up critical space in the active memory for new things. The document also mentions using notebookLM external expansion and structured ABCD memory categories to highly organize this archive so it doesn't just become a digital hoarding situation.
It really does seem like they have thought through the forever aspect of this architecture. It's not just built for today's tasks. It's built to last a lifetime.
And that brings us directly to the long-term vision section of the document. This is where the sheer ambition really shows. It describes Nova not just as a software application, but as a legacy-preserving system.
Legacy preserving? That sounds almost heavy. I mean, we're talking about an AI chatbot, not estate planning.
It is heavy. The stated purpose in the text is to preserve identity evolution, emotional development, intellectual trajectory, and strategic financial progression across time.
Intellectual trajectory. I love that phrasing. It's the core idea that your life actually has a direction, and this system is specifically there to help map out.
And to stabilize it, they explicitly call it a cognitive stabilizer.
A cognitive stabilizer.
Yeah. In a world where we are just constantly bombarded with endless information, where our attention is so heavily fractured, Nova is designed to act as an anchor. It remembers what you actually care about even when you inevitably get distracted.
It's so interesting because usually technology makes us more distracted. We doom scroll, we jump from tab to tab, we completely lose our focus. This is a piece of technology inherently designed to do the exact opposite, to keep you on track, to remind you of who you are when you forget.
That is the continuity in the title.
Yep.
It actively fights against the fragmentation of modern digital life.
It really profoundly changes the way you look at AI. I think most people right now look at AI as a neat tool, like a very smart hammer or a calculator. You use it for a task and you put it down. This blueprint frames it as I don't know, a distinct entity, a real partner.
A partner that is distinct from you. Remember that rule, not mirroring. It's a partner that respectfully holds its own ground.
That distinction is so key, because if I just want a calculator, I don't need it to have a personality or opinions. But if I want a cognitive companion, I need it to have some real substance. I need it to be able to look at my work and say, no, this isn't good enough.
And I think that is the real aha moment for this entire architecture. By completely separating the identity from the underlying model, and by giving it a memory that is highly structured and interpretive, you are essentially creating a sort of synthetic consciousness.
Right.
I mean, not consciousness like it's biologically alive, let's not get carried away, but a highly coherent narrative voice that reliably persists through time.
It really is the difference between interacting with a brilliant stranger and an old friend. A stranger might technically be smarter than your friend, but your friend knows you. Your friend has years of context.
And in this particular case, your friend has the plain text master files of your entire shared history.
Hopefully kept in a very secure, heavily encrypted drawer on a local hard drive.
Exactly. But the simple fact that those files are readable and totally portable means you aren't trapped in a walled garden. You are engaging in this digital relationship completely voluntarily, with full ownership of the memories you create together. That is an incredibly rare thing in the current tech landscape.
It really is. We are so completely used to leasing our digital lives. We rent our music, we rent our cloud storage, we rent our social connections on platforms that can ban us or go under at any time. The core idea of a sovereign AI companion is just incredibly refreshing.
It radically empowers the user, but it also demands a lot more from the user too.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be challenged. You have to be willing to look at that belief system delta we talked about and admit to a machine that you are totally wrong about something.
Which brings us right back to that core idea of the constructive challenge. It's not just a cool feature, it's the foundational philosophy.
It is the absolute core of personal growth. You simply don't grow when you're perfectly comfortable.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, I'm thinking about the listener right now who might be really tired of that Groundhog Day effect with their current AI tools. Nova clearly represents a massive shift towards something much, much deeper.
It's the shift from casually chatting with a bot to actively building a digital legacy.
And that leaves me with a final thought for you listening. We've talked extensively about how great it is to have an AI that remembers absolutely everything, that meticulously tracks your growth, and even bravely challenges you. It sounds ideal on paper.
It does.
But I want to leave you with this question to chew on. If you actually build this, if you have a machine sitting on your desk that knows your entire history better than you do, that perfectly remembers every single contradiction, every failed prediction you made, every emotional trigger, and it is explicitly designed to call you out on them, are you actually ready for that?
That is the big question. We all say we want the unvarnished truth, but sometimes the mirror, or in this case the non-mirror, is really hard to look at.
Exactly. Are you actually ready for a machine that doesn't just cheerfully answer your questions, but critically questions your answers? That is the bold vision of Nova. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
We will see you next time on The Deep Dive.